This is Call You and Yours. The time now is 12:30. I'm Winifred Robinson. Today we're asking why people drop out of university. Record numbers are going to go this year because the government made an extra 30,000 places available. So 500,000 people will be starting courses, moving to towns and cities they hardly know. In some colleges, though, 1 in 5 of them will drop out without finishing their degree. Please call us now if you think you know why that happens. This is Call You and Yours today. We're asking why students drop out of university. If you want to tell us what you think, ring 03700 100 444. James is on the line. He is in Cardiff. James, why do you think that students leave university without finishing their degrees?
Hi. I was really surprised listening this morning about the reasons why students might leave. That health wasn't mentioned at all, really, and in particular I'm thinking about mental health, and that young people aren't at all sort of exempt from mental health problems or health problems in general, and to hear that not mentioned on the same day that, the Chief Medical Officer, Sally Davis, is saying that society isn't recognising the prevalence of mental health problems is quite surprising, and I think young people are certainly affected from my experience, and, to think that the highest risk to my mortality as a young man is suicide. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem, and when you combine that with the huge change in life of going to university at a time when you're particularly vulnerable in terms of perhaps personality formation or things like that.
Tell me what happened to you, James.
Well, I have had enduring mental health problems since about 16, but I left school as a straight A-star student and didn't take up a place at Cambridge because I had mental health problems and wasn't well enough, but I ended up studying medicine in Bristol, and I ended up dropping out of my course because of my eating disorder, really. I didn't struggle academically or with styles of learning, which has been very much emphasised so far, but I was spending more time maintaining an eating disorder than studying, and found that was it was quite difficult to access support both before going to university and there, and with the change in locations and differing services, levels of service and things like that. And I ended up leaving my degree with after about 3 years, with no degree and a lot of debt. And really when if it took me 6 years to access any specialist treatment for eating disorders, and I think perhaps, if statutory services were picking up on that better, then it wouldn't lead to such a high cost for individuals, really.
Did you hear Carol Fleming from Nottingham Trent University? She was saying that she thinks we underestimate the perfect storm of pressure that assails people when they leave home and go to university.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there are an awful lot of demands. I mean, it does vary with courses, and I think some people may find the lack of structure from an arts degree very difficult, and others may find the high pressure on courses like medicine can be difficult. So it's not a uniform experience for all students, and I think people need to be aware of that before they go, really.
And how are you now, James? What are you doing now?
I'm managed to keep some of my credit from my medical degree, but I'm trying to finish my degree with the Open University part-time, and I volunteer with mental health organisations and eating disorder services locally, actually, and they've identified students as a group that particularly struggle with eating problems because of this new personal responsibility and everything, and it's quite an opportunity for that particular type of mental health problem to thrive, really.
James, thank you very much for coming on and telling us about that, and best of luck for the future. Shannon's on the line. Shannon, you've also left university, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I was at King's College in London, which is one of the best universities you could possibly have gone to. And I ended up leaving shortly after the end of the first term. So I didn't feel that the university experience was what I had expected it to be at all. I really struggled with the level of feedback that I was given from my papers that I handed in earlier in the term.
What were you studying? Sorry, what were you studying?
I was studying English language.
So you were handing your essays in, and
yes.
what? You were not getting any proper feedback, or you felt it wasn't proper feedback?
Well, when I was getting them back, I was getting them back graded, and maybe with just 1 or 2 comments on there, but I didn't feel like what I was getting back early on in the term was allowing me to develop and improve further on, and I ended up floundering quite a lot because I didn't know what I needed to do to get the grades I felt I should be achieving, which led to me becoming very disheartened because I could see that the grades that I was getting from my essays weren't the grades that I knew I could achieve, and I just didn't know how to improve, and I felt very frustrated, and it really knocked my confidence.
How long did you stay?
The term started in the September. I left. It would have been March when I came home in the end, because I just knew that my first year counted as part of my final score, which is unusual. Lots of universities don't have that. Your first year doesn't count towards your end degree, but mine did, and I knew that I wasn't getting the grades I should, and I didn't want to leave with a mediocre degree. I wanted to get a first or a 2-1, and that wasn't going to happen. So I decided to cut my losses.
What are you doing now, Shannon?
When I left, I came home, applied for lots of jobs, but didn't find anything really. I ended up doing an apprenticeship for 2 years. I worked with Michelin for 2 years, doing sort of various admin roles, and I left. And at the minute, I'm at home. I'm a mum now, so that's my priority. But I do want to get back into work, and I would love to revisit doing my degree at some point, because it was always something that I wanted to do.
So just to pin it down, what would have made it possible, do you think, for you to have stayed at King's College? Obviously, we can't speak for them. They're not here to defend themselves. But what do you think was lacking?
I think that first term, I think if I'd had better feedback from the tutors, or if I'd felt more involved in the university life, it might have given me more of an incentive to stay. But like I say, I didn't feel like I could achieve what I was there to achieve. So for me, it just defeated the whole object.
Shannon, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
It's all right. Thank you.
This is Call You and Yours. We're asking why some people leave university without completing their degree. The number to call 03700 100 444. A few minutes ago we were talking about some recent research. It suggests that first impressions really count, as Shannon was explaining then. Students are more likely to stay, it seems, if they are made to feel welcome when they arrive and even before they arrive. Professor Peter Slee contacted us about it. He is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Huddersfield University. Professor Slee, how good a retention rate does Huddersfield have?
We have a good retention rate. About 92% of our students, so just over 9 out of every 10, will stay the course now. But as your callers have been saying, this is an extremely complicated issue, and what we've discovered is that there are probably 3 sets of reasons why students do leave, and I think we've heard examples of each of those. The first is maybe not quite making the right choice for you, and Helen talked about that, whether you choose the right institution or the right subject or even the right options as part of that subject. That's critical, and it's a very tough set of choices for young people to make, because I'm told that the only product that's available on the market that has more choices than universities is bottled beer. So it's a really complicated set of problems for students there. Secondly, and Claire talked about her son being disengaged, and Shannon talked about difficulties of coming to terms with learning. There's managing this transition from familiar to unfamiliar surroundings, and feeling part of a community. 6,000 students will come to the University of Huddersfield in the next couple of weeks, and you need to find your niche in there. You need to find friends, you need to find people that you've got something in common with, in order to manage your time and your effort. And then thirdly, of course, you've got to learn to become a more independent learner. And then on top of that, many students bring difficult issues with them that James talked so movingly about. People do have health problems or mental health problems. Our mature students will have caring to do of children or maybe older parents. Some people struggle with money. So there are many, many issues that can lead to students not staying the course. And a university like ours has got to find ways of dealing with all of those things.
I think it's fair to say that universities have always offered a more independent style of learning than you got at school. But sometimes students nowadays are paying £9,000 a year or thereabouts for a very few teaching hours, and they feel that there's hardly any teaching involved and that is the university's fault.
Well, I think that depends on the subject, and also, of course, the skills that the subject's trying to develop. So if you take a program like the one that James studied with medicine, that's a highly timetabled subject, and students will be in classrooms and laboratories and on practice almost all of the working week. You take a subject area, and I think Shannon might have talked about this, like English or history, where there's an enormous amount of reading to be done. The real skills of being an independent learner are about learning how to read, to take the information from that, to apply it to problems that your tutors set.
Because when I was at university, I was a long time ago, I had lectures and tutorials every single day. I didn't have a single free day. I might have had some free hours.
Well, one of the things that we would expect is for probably every hour of formal tuition that a student has, they spend between 3 and 4 hours in independent learning in reading round that. And of course, as Carol said from Nottingham Trent University, attached to that there are tutorials and opportunities to do peer learning with other students. But the critical thing is, of course, that not to throw students right into the deep end from a highly structured school course into just 1 or 2 hours a week. But most universities will have a very strong induction program where they help students develop the skills to do independent learning, skills which are going to be critical in their future careers.
Can I just ask you one thing? At Huddersfield, if you had somebody doing a degree who was struggling with an eating disorder, do you think you have a duty there to have people who notice that?
Yes, we do, and what we try and do confidentially with all of our students is ask them to declare if they have an issue, and then we can provide them one-on-one support. Now, this isn't an easy thing for many people to do. Not everyone is willing to share their problems, in which case then we have to be able to try and identify them. We have a whole series of mechanisms where we can help to do that.
Thank you for the moment, Professor Slee, but stay with us because you may want to respond to some of our callers. Please call us now, 03700 100 444, or email youandyours@bbc.co.uk. We read all of the emails, and Shari Val's doing that now. She's with our team taking the calls. Shari, tell us about today's emails.
Winifred, you've really tapped into something here. We've had lots of emails with a very familiar theme. Catherine has emailed, and she says, I attended a Russell Group University. Oh, by the way, I've changed the names of the universities. All the people have named them, but I've decided not to. I attended a Russell Group University for 2 terms and left to go to another one. The welcome at the first university, in my opinion, was not helpful at all. I had a very hard time settling in. The law school and the business schools sent out conflicting first week timetables, and my first week was a nightmare. The whole experience threw me off completely and I couldn't cope, and by the second term I was having counselling. However, she says, I reapplied at Christmas and was accepted at the other Russell Group University, and it's been incredible. Their week 1 programme is excellent. I felt supported and organised and truly welcomed. I'm now studying the course I want to, and I was the welfare rep within my hall. Universities, she says, need to take more responsibility to welcome and look after their freshers. And Fiona has written, she says, we're concerned that my stepson didn't get the grades to show a commitment to studying law. In fact, the grades weren't good enough for him to get into the apprentice programme he'd looked at, yet a major Russell Group University accepted his grades for him to read law this year. He's clearly not ready to do this, and he didn't work for his exams at school, and lucky thing, and he's about to be saddled with a lot of debt to go to a university if he drops out. And there's a man who's written, who doesn't want to be named. He's emailed and he said, I dropped out of university 3 years ago and I really struggled adapting to the university lifestyle, leaving home, managing my finances in another city at 18. Whilst I was there, I didn't get into university accommodation. And he says, I lived in a house an hour away from the campus, and he says he thinks this had a big impact. I left after 1 semester and I'm starting a degree in my home city this month and feel this time it's more out of choice. He said, I wasn't expected to do things and I have now had a very long time to think about it, and hopefully it'll work out this time. Winifred, those echo lots of emails that we've had where people have had a bit of a shock when they've gone there. and they feel that the university hasn't helped them enough.
Shari, thanks. I should say that in that research about student retention, many of the Russell Group universities did really well. Lots of texts as well. This one from an A-level teacher. It's very hard to listen to university staff complaining about the school focus on passing exams when the universities judge students precisely on their exam results. This one... about somebody who's saying that they had a bad experience at Sheffield reading English. I think it's incredibly personal. This is from Sarah. I went to Sheffield, also studied English literature, and I absolutely loved it. Chris from Brighton has texted with a request. Please, can someone mention that degree courses are hard? He says he started with more than 80 other students, but only 24 graduate students dropping out. He says, what's new? Jenny is on the line. Jenny, tell us, what's your experience then of people dropping out of university?
Well, both my sons, they went to different universities at different times doing different courses, and both dropped out towards the end of their first year. I think there were obviously lots of issues. The main one, I feel, which is really echoing what everyone else was saying, is that neither of us seemed to have any specific tutor that they could go and see, or who could identify that they were having difficulties.
What difficulties did they have, Jenny?
I think they just found the work too much
and too difficult.
And they both had been away at school, so it wasn't actually sort of the fact they were leaving home.
Yes, they weren't homesick.
They weren't homesick. No, definitely not that. But I just felt, especially the older one, it was quite a technical course, and I just felt that he started to flounder and then he gave up. But whereas he's very bright and he did very well in his A-levels, and I just felt that if he had just a bit more, someone had identified earlier, he would have stayed and finished.
And how are they doing now, your boys?
Well, that one, the older one, is about to start an OU course. He's done 2 years of sort of working here, there and everywhere, and he's about to start doing OU. The younger one's only just left, so I don't quite know what he's going to do yet. The other thing is, I do actually wonder, there are too many students in a year. I mean, when I went to university, I seemed to know everyone, but they were much more isolated.
Yes.
And the younger one, I think, had problems with accommodation, so he was living out and away from the sort of group.
Do you think they made sorry to interrupt you, do you think they made the right choices? Because this business of what the course is like, how much teaching time there'll be, how many will be in your group, I'm guessing it's possible to find out that before you go, isn't it?
I think, yes, I think so. I think with the older one, that wasn't so much an issue. It was the younger one who, he actually tried twice. He did 1 year of one course and then he changed on to another one. But I think the older one, that wasn't an issue, but for the younger one, I think it was.
Thank you very much for that. Mary is on the line in Lancashire. Mary, I think you too have children who've left university, is that right?
No, mine didn't leave university. I'm a parent of 6 graduate children, all now with postgraduate qualifications. But the 3 boys did struggle. Partly, I think, they chose universities too far away from home. They were immature, and they chose the wrong course. 2 of them changed to a university nearer home, and they all changed. Those 3 changed courses. I would say, and this goes for even some of their friends, they still needed parental support, just as when students are at school, those who do best are the ones who have parental support and backing and an understanding of the learning process.
It's hard though, isn't it, Mary, because they're young adults, and often when you try to help at this stage, they politely tell you to butt out.
Sometimes not even politely, but no, they were ringing home regularly for both academic support and emotional support. And when it got to the point when they weren't getting on with their course and they were at the point of leaving, they were actually happy, and so were their tutors happy, for me to talk to the tutors. And sort of amongst us, we were able to choose other suitable courses and 2 of them assist them in changing universities.
Well, Mary, just stay on the line a moment, because I want to bring Ellie into the conversation. She's calling from London and she's currently thinking of leaving her degree course. Ellie, tell us about that. Tell us why.
Hi, yeah. I just feel that I've done my of the university course already. And design is something that's my passion, and I just feel that for what I'm paying, actually I'm not really getting much out of it.
So your line's breaking up a little bit. You're studying design, are you? And that's your passion?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm studying design, and I've done my first year. But I just feel like for the amount of money that we're paying, which is £9,000 a year, I'm not getting hardly any contact time or actually very much guidance.
So, Mary, what would you say to Ellie then if she was your daughter?
I would say to Ellie, try to stick with it. It is your passion. Jobs in design are very difficult to come by, but at the end you will have a degree, and that might be a hook to get other jobs. At this moment, you feel that all you want to do is design, but once with your degree, it may enable you to go sideways. And certainly without your degree, it will be more difficult.
Ellie, I'm guessing you're turning all this over in your mind.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Do your parents help and support you?
Yes, they do. And I think actually they just want me to be happy and successful in whatever I do. But it's a very difficult situation when you feel that you're doing something that you really love, but actually it's not what you expected it to be, and you feel like it's not rewarding at all.
Well, Professor Peter Slee from Huddersfield University is with us as our guest today. Professor Slee, this has come out again and again, hasn't it? Almost the sense that the universities are overselling what they have to offer, perhaps in the competition to get students in.
Well, it's something that every university must work hard to avoid. As I said, students have an awful lot of choice. There are very many things they could do and very many places that they could do them. And as I think James said from YouthSite, universities are in competition for students, in order to generate the income they need to provide the programs they want to provide. So but it is important that universities don't do that and try and engage closely with students during the process of choice, so that students get the opportunity to understand how things work. So at Huddersfield, for instance, in design, all of the students that we make offers to are invited to come in and look and see what we do, to talk to other students and staff, to experience the facilities. Even then, of course, it is possible that when a student's made what they think is a perfectly reasoned choice, it doesn't quite turn out the way that they would like it to. I think design as well is a difficult subject to study as well, because the creative process rests with the student, and there's a lot of responsibility on them.
We've got a tweet here from someone called Evan. He says, universities sell the student experience in their glossy prospectuses, but the reality, however, is often much less friendly, much less fun.
Well, as I said, I think every student who comes to university brings their own experiences, their own expectations and their own motivation. What I think it's important to say as well is that although this is a very serious issue, and it's one that all universities are very conscious of and working hard to improve, the retention rates in UK universities are the best in Europe. And so this whole process of transition is extremely difficult for every person that goes through it. And they all, as I say, they all bring their different motivations and experience, and universities have to work with them as individuals to try and help them find their own way through this process.
Professor Peter Slee from Huddersfield University, thank you. Let's just take a couple more calls then, because we're coming to the end of our time. Looks like Josiana Botanay, is that right?
Yes, that's it. Josiane Boutonnet, hello.
Hello. Tell us your experience of this then, Josiane.
Right. I work in a new university, so probably different from all the Russell Group universities that have been mentioned so far. And as a new university, we do provide a lot of support to students. We have fantastic support systems in place.
And what's the retention rate at your place then?
Well, our retention rate has dropped. Has improved over the years, because I think when fees were introduced, higher fees were introduced, I think most universities lost 20% in the first year, and our rate has dropped. I'm not quite sure what the figure is now, but I know it went down to 10%. So our support mechanisms are fantastic, and I think I'd like to reiterate the point about choosing the right course and the right university. Far too often, students think they need to go to a Russell Group university. when in fact perhaps a more local university would be better for them.
Josiane, I'm just going to stop you. Thank you for making that point. I just get Jessica Jackson on the line. Jessica, are you someone who dropped out of university?
I didn't drop out.
You finished your degree?
Say again, sorry?
You finished your degree?
I finished my degree, but I actually wish I had dropped out.
Why?
I think the truth is I think I probably shouldn't have gone to university in the first place. The grades I had weren't brilliant from my A-levels. And I did a performing arts course at a red brick university. But the course was very much distanced from the actual main campus. It was kind of a satellite campus, and throughout the whole 3 years we were treated very much like second-class citizens. The course actually came to an end. We
Jessica,
were the last year doing it.
I'm going to have to stop you. I'll just squeeze you in, but thank you. There's a very interesting take on it, and thank you to everyone who's got in touch. Thanks to Professor Peter Slee from Huddersfield University, who's been our guest today.